Ambassador Kelrix had negotiated with 47 species across the Galactic Council. He had brokered peace treaties, trade agreements, and territorial disputes. But he had never seen humans angry before. The conference room aboard the Neutral station fell silent as Commander Sarah Chen placed the data crystal on the table. Her hands were steady, but Kelrix noticed the slight tremor in her jaw, the way her knuckles had gone white. "These are the locations," she said quietly. Too quietly. Kelrix's translator struggled with the undertones. Humans, he had learned over the past 3 years of first contact, were remarkable in their emotional range. They laughed easily, loved deeply, and forgave quickly. The Galactic Council had welcomed them as a curious, energetic species, young, perhaps naive, but earnest in their desire to join the cosmic community. Locations of what? Council Director, Tammuz asked, his triple-jointed fingers reaching for the crystal. Child slave markets. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Kelrix felt his scales ripple with discomfort. Yes, the Viridian Syndicate operated such enterprises in the outer systems. It was unfortunate, but the Council had deemed it an internal matter. The species involved were all pre-industrial captures from interdicted worlds. The economics were complicated. Intervention would be costly. We have reviewed this matter before, Tammuz began. The Viridian are holding approximately 47,000 sentient children in bondage. Commander Chen's voice cut through the director's words like a laser through flesh. 32 different species, some as young as 3 standard years. They are beaten, starved, and sold to the highest bidder. This is a cultural matter, Counselor Vex interjected, his gas form shimmering with what Kelrix recognized as irritation. The Viridian Syndicate operates within their sovereign. Sarah Chen moved so fast that Kelrix's threat assessment implant barely registered it. She was across the table, her face centimeters from Vex's containment field, and when she spoke, every human in the room stood up. Cultural? The word came out like broken glass. You're calling child slavery cultural? Commander, please, Kelrix ventured, trying to inject calm into the situation. The humans must understand. Galactic law is complex. We cannot simply... We don't need your permission. The statement came from Admiral Marcus Webb, who had been silent until now. He stood at the back of the human delegation, a mountain of a man with silver hair and eyes that had seen too many battles. I'm sorry? Tammuz's translator crackled with confusion. You heard me. Webb stepped forward. We came here as a courtesy, to inform you, not to ask. Kelrix felt his blood chill. He had studied human history, their wars, their conflicts, their capacity for violence. The Council had assumed that their entry into galactic society would temper such primitive instincts. They had been wrong. You cannot wage war against a Council-recognized entity. Tammuz stood, his bulk quivering with indignation. You're a single planet. The Viridian Syndicate controls 14 star systems. Sarah Chen smiled. It was the most terrifying expression Kelrix had ever witnessed. Controlled, she corrected. The first battle of Viridian Prime lasted 4 hours. The Syndicate's defense fleet was formidable. 300 warships, orbital defense platforms, and shield generators that could withstand a supernova. They had defended their territory for 600 years against pirates, rivals, and even Council peacekeepers. The human fleet arrived through a quantum jump point that shouldn't have existed. Their ships weren't the largest or most advanced, but they moved with a coordination that suggested a single, terrible mind. And they didn't target military installations. They targeted slave markets. Kinetic bombardments struck with surgical precision. Rescue shuttles descended before the dust settled. Human marines, clad in armor that seemed to absorb light itself, moved through the chaos with a purpose that transcended military doctrine. Kelrix watched the footage from the Council observation post, his heart sinking with each passing minute. The humans weren't conquering. They were liberating. Every slave pen opened, every child carried to safety, Every slaver who resisted met with overwhelming, ruthless force. "They're going to trigger a galactic war," Tammuz whispered beside him. But they didn't. The Viridian Syndicate called for aid. The council deliberated. And one by one, species that had remained silent about the slavery issue found themselves facing a terrible question. Would they go to war to defend child slavery? The answer was no. It took Earth 6 months to dismantle the entire Viridian operation. They lost ships, they lost soldiers, but they didn't lose their resolve. Kelric stood in the Hall of Unity as the rescued children, now cleaned, fed, and recovering, were returned to their home worlds. Some species had thought their children lost forever. The reunions were profound. Commander Chen found him there, watching a Drexian mother embrace her daughter for the first time in 4 years. "Your council hates us now," she said without preamble. "Some do," Kelric admitted. "You violated a dozen treaties, destabilized an entire sector. And? Kelric turned to face her, his scales shifting to the color of deep respect. "You did something we should have done centuries ago. You reminded us that laws without justice are just chains with documentation." Sarah Chen nodded slowly. "We're not going anywhere, Ambassador. We're part of this galaxy now, but understand this. We won't let you forget what matters. Not ever." Kelric looked back at the reunions, at the children who would grow up free, because one species decided that some things were worth fighting for. "I don't think the galaxy will let you," he said quietly. "Half the council wants to sanction you. The other half wants to know if you're accepting applications to your fleet." For the first time since he'd met her, Sarah Chen laughed. It was a warm sound, full of hope. "Tell them we'll think about it," she said. "But they'll have to pass our ethics review first." As she walked away, Kelric understood something fundamental about humans. They weren't the strongest species, or the smartest, or the oldest. But they possessed something the galaxy had forgotten in its ancient complexity. The simple, terrible clarity of knowing that some things are just wrong. And the will to do something about it.